Well, if we actually look at the past record, just go back the last sort of 10, 15 years, very rarely have we actually gone above 200,000. So quoting 300,000 is fine, that's a pledge, but delivering is another thing.
Why is that? Why haven't, given this demand, it must be the only market where people aren't struggling to meet a demand?
It's an interesting one because if you look at the household formation, it far outweighs the building construction. And there's certainly the land there, but the question you've got is, have we got a skill shortage? Do we have a material shortage? And we have to get these numbers up quickly, and we're unlikely to be able to do that.
You're actually saying we don't have enough builders? Is that what you're saying? Skill
shortage, yes.
Really? Tom, is that something that you agree with?
Yes, I certainly would do. I mean, just in the where I work in Lymington, several houses are large, substantial houses being built, but they're being using prefab construction techniques rather than more traditional building strategies.
And is there anything that you see from any of the parties that's likely to deliver the volume that we need to produce affordable housing?
No, again, if you look at the UK house construction over the last 30, 40 years, and you look at the private sector, that is pretty much levelled out around about 170, 180,000. If you go back to the 50s and 60s, where we were delivering 300,000 plus, you had the local authorities involved. We don't have that now, so we've lost that potential.
And good news for private landlords who are sitting pretty as ever.
Absolutely, but I think there's another fundamental difference in the market. In the old days, as it were, when we were building those sort of more substantial numbers, there were lots more SME builders, small and medium-sized enterprise builders. Those seem to have been driven out of the market in the last 10 or 15 years by the state of the economy and the market downturn. And until we get them back, until we can encourage people to build 10, 15 houses in a local village or a local town again, I think we'll struggle to get up to those numbers.
Mentioning that, of course, brings up the issue of planning, because plenty of people talk about, oh yes, it'd be great to have affordable housing, as long as it's not next door to me. We've got an example of that literally a mile away from where we're seated tonight. Is planning an issue, Michael?
Absolutely. I mean, the planning system is locked. The green belt, the concept of green belt has been completely overtaken. Green belt was meant to protect some of our most valuable forests and our most valuable parkland and national parks. It wasn't meant to protect every single piece of green field, scrappy or small, around every single village or town in the United Kingdom. But because of NIMBYism, really, we have reinvented the purpose of green belt. And unpopular though it is, the fact is we're going to have to release some of this green belt. Brown land is not going to supply enough land to meet housing needs. So it's a very, very intractable question.
If you could wave a magic wand in front of whoever's housing minister post the election with regard to planning, what would you do?
I think Stephen touched on it then, actually. I think it would be allowed every farmer and every small village to build 15 houses. I think if they were allowed to do that, and if some of them were affordable, that would be a massive solution. I can understand why nobody wants a development of 200 houses on their doorstep. But actually, we don't need to do that. We just need to allow communities to build a small number of houses. But of course, that's deeply unpopular to the large developers.
So do any of you have any faith that any of the parties will come anywhere near to solving the fact that simply we aren't building enough houses? Do any of you believe that any of them will get anywhere near the targets that we need?
No, and I think the point's already been raised. It's a real capacity issue to be able to build housing in this country. We had to complete a large programme of houses for the end of March, and we had awful problems getting good labour to site, materials, and contractors are struggling. There's about 1 million people, I understand, have left the industry since the recession, and we're just not training enough people. So even if there was, a party who was very committed, there was funding available, I think we just haven't got the capacity. And the average age, I think, of the construction industry now is in the sort of mid-40s. And we need to think radically as to how we can actually build again. And that might be through off-site manufacturing or whatever, but we need to think radically, because we just haven't got the capacity in this country to build the number of houses we need.
We had the supposed influx of Polish plumbers, but we need brickies, we need chippies, we need
all trades right across
and
the
materials.
board. And materials, yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people watching this will think it's absolutely extraordinary that we haven't got people who can build houses or provide
But the other problem, Richard, is it's not only the number of houses. What we all know, it's where they're built. There is a demand for a certain sort of housing, and the demand is very high in the southwest, the southeast, and London. And it's how do you meet that demand? Yeah. And I don't believe that any political party has got a solution to that one.
And whatever you come up with, it isn't going to be a quick fix solution either.
But perhaps what Michael's just said puts the spotlight on the point. No political party can do this. There's a strong argument, I would say, for depoliticising housing. It's too big an issue for the country to leave to the politicians. You're going to have stop-start policies, and where it takes 3 years from a plot of land to a completed house, if you take planning as well as building, stop-start policies are the last thing you need. So one of our colleagues in the mortgage lending industry suggested last week that housing policy ought to be taken out of the hands of government and given to, say, the Bank of England, and that it ought to be run on a long term. It ought to have a 15-year plan, not even a 5-year plan. I appreciate the HCA 5-year plan is quite a good idea, but a 15-year plan would give builders the confidence to recruit apprentices. It would give people a confidence to enter into an industry, rather than thinking I might do 3 years bricklaying and then there's going to be the next downturn.
Well, you paint a pretty bleak picture, all of you, but it's hard to believe, given, say, with record low interest rates and every indication that they're likely to continue. About a year ago, we were talking about interest rates beginning to edge up, and would that take the edge off inflation? Now we're talking about them staying historically low for a lot longer. I mean, if you can't build now, when on earth will we? Tom?
Well, it's, as I think my other panel members have sort of dealt with the issue, it's one of capacity. First of all, on the supply side, actual land, okay, we can release that for development, but it's actually then getting the people then in to actually build it. And as Stephen said, it'll take 10 to 15 years to get the trainees and apprentices through to actually constructing things. It's not something you can switch on and off. It's something that needs slowly building up over time.
And you mentioned interest rates. Again, if you map out interest rates over a period of time, there is no correlation between interest rates and new build construction.
No.
So it's the capacity that's the issue, not the interest rate.